Today we're going to make what I call a 5-element charger or Skybuster, whatever you want to call it. We're going to use all the elements. This is very easy to make. Basically we start with a metal dog food bowl. It doesn't matter if it's dirty, whatever. You could use an old one. Stainless steel is fine. Fill it about 1 inch with topsoil or potting soil, any kind of earth. This is Miracle Grow, it doesn't matter. I have these energy beads. These are supercharged beads. I got a starter one from Keith Perry, and then the charge just around glass grows, and inside of a closed container. I'll talk later about supercharging. Will supercharge them all up. This has 13 in it, and I used a geometric pattern. This is a Star of David. They say so above as below, all that kind of thing. But the way the energy works, if you can tune into geometric patterns too, it's like the energy of crystals, whatever. Some people can tune into it. If you can tune into the geometry of the Star of David, you'll see how it pulls together energy, focuses it, kind of makes it coherent, and then sends it off like a beam of energy. I liken it to when you see the beginning of Star Trek, the engines fire up, and then at a certain point, threshold, it just takes off. That's what happens. The Star of David geometry pulls it really tight into a tight energy and focuses it. The shape of the bowl here will focus the energy as well, up and outward. A lot of people use they've built Cloudbusters, which are pipes, and that's very focused. This is a lot more diffuse, and we're dealing with so much energy here. Billions of bovis we're talking. When you put beads into a Star of David configuration, you're going to ramp up the power about 300 times or more, because it's, instead of random energy going everywhere, it focuses it, and then it all works together. So just using the Star of David configuration gives you 300 times or more increase of power. This coil was one a friend gave me. That's not required. Even the center bead is not really required. That's extra, but the way this works is it tightens the energy a little bit more. It's totally optional. I keep them away from the metal, because if a bead touches metal, then the energy of metal will just overpower everything else. We want a balance. This has the energy of earth, water. I pour water over each bead just to kind of help conductivity to the metal and balance energy. So we want the energy of the earth, water, air, of course, and the 0 point energy in this source energy is the fire. So we have, and the metal. We got 5 elements in here, all working together. You want to balance the energy, the amount of earth, the amount of water, and metal, and it'll work good together. If you had too much metal, if you had these beads touching the metal, you'd get the stainless steel, you would get a piercing metallic energy, and it wouldn't be very good. It would just be too high end, and would not be comfortable. Taking this a step further, rotating energy counterclockwise. If you take your hand, if you can send energy and you send it spiraling counterclockwise, that sends energy out. So when I started, I was every 15-20 minutes I would just rotate this about 90 degrees and let it sit. That acts almost like the torsion Cloudbusters that have the twist, except this is more dynamic, because you're moving it, so now it has a new orientation. And that's one dimension. We're turning it on one dimensions. So what I did was I took apart an old microwave oven that didn't work anymore. I don't use microwaves anymore, but this one was broke. And snagged the motor out of it that turns the platter. This thing spins slow enough, and it's a 120 volt AC, so it plugs right in. And I spliced it into an old power cord. But the 120 volts gives a lot of torque, enough to do this, to turn up this bowl. We're gonna put it. And in my dowsing, see, I dowse when I build engineer specs and stuff. Like, I dowse what's the best configuration, what's the best diameter. That's why I got 1 inch from the edges on this. We could go a 1/2 inch, but the closer the beads are to the metal, the more metal you're introducing. The further away, the tighter you're getting. So yeah, closer to the metal is more broadcast, but you're getting more metal energy. And so for me, 1 inch works perfect. And this is angled 22. This basically came with that, and I set that in there till it falls right in. And we got an angle of 22.5 degrees, basically half of 45. You take a 90-degree angle, chop it in half, 45, chop it in half again, you got 22.5. This is optimal for getting the distance we want, because when we fire this up, or when we turn this on, it's gonna rotate. This motor here is a little finicky. Sometimes it turns clockwise, sometimes it turns counterclockwise, so use whatever motor you can. Now we're going to use some Velcro to attach it. I'm going to use 2 layers here of the Velcro. And I tried to make this as neat as I could. I have a miter handsaw. I don't have a real thing. So I was able to cut close to 22.5 is optimal for coverage. And when we throw the dynamics in there, when we start adding motion to it, this will rotate on 2 degrees. As it spins, we're rotating this way, but we're giving it a wobble too. So we're adding 2 dimensions of rotation, and not just 1. 3 dimensions, you could have this spinning too, but that's too complicated for our needs here. If you feel adventurous, try adding a 3rd dimension and let me know. Okay. So we have the 1 strip there. Let's add the backing to this. Velcro is probably the best. I try to piece together what I can. Velcro is really good because it's going to be strong enough, and it allows us to detach the thing if we just want the bowl sitting out. This will start ramping up. Once you put something into a Star of David configuration, it's going to amplify itself. It's going to resonate and build. And this energy was so balanced. I'm used to it now, but when I first put it together, it warmed, it got hot there, and it was very, very nice there. And let's do a 2nd layer. It's a little bit, it moves a little bit, but I'm not too worried. It's going to be spinning very, very slow. The ideal revolutions is 4.4 revolutions per hour, ideally, to resonate with everything, but I can't get that precise now. I'm going to deal with what I can. This, at least we're introducing movement. Slower movement is good. Slower gives more time for energy to get out. Even though the field's instantaneous, it's got to kind of get out. The air's kind of got to have time to saturate. So call this either a Skybuster or a 5-element charger. I use the term charger for devices dedicated to charging crystals, like closed metal boxes. You could throw a charged bead in a closed metal box with crystals and they'll all charge up. 0 point energy amplifies that easily.